And we are live. Good morning. Happy Saturday. Welcome to Super Galactic Saturday with Jerry Sr. and Jerry Jr.
Good
Uh,
morning.
it's a wonderful morning, as always, here in sunny California. Although today it's not so sunny
I
yet,
was about to
it's
say,
still
yeah.
kind of overcast. But it's kind of weird here. It's The weather is temperamental. So sometimes it's great and sometimes it's okay. Today, so far, it's okay. Still morning. I think by maybe after the afternoon, it'll be nice and sunny and a little warmer. But still, any day above ground is a good day. So
Yep.
I'm thankful. Yeah. So how you been? How you been doing? What's going on in your neck of the woods? Everything good?
Just been working hard, doing a lot of writing, kind of writing multiple things at once. Me. One of my favorite aspects of writing is, I guess, is character development, character creation, things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Figuring out what makes a character tick,
We've been
finding
having a
out
lot
their
of
whys.
conversations about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're doing some great work on our script for the book that's coming up. We're going to be campaigning later this year. Stories coming together real nice, and yeah, I'm excited. It's some good stuff that we've come up with, and yeah, your writing's been great. So
I
um,
appreciate it.
yeah, looking forward to it. So right now I'm working with an artist, a couple of artists, to figure out sort of the direction to go with the look for the book, right, for the comic book,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to find like the right, you know. So far, I like both artists, so we'll see. I've shared some of the art online from one of the artists, and he's really great. He's helped me to capture that animated sort of cell shade animated look and feel. So this other artist, we'll see. He's working
Mm-hmm.
on a couple of pages to give me an idea, you know, of the direction he
Cool.
can go. So we'll see how it goes. I like his work. I like his style too. So I'm kind of
Yeah, we got
excited.
some great artists so far.
Yeah, yeah. So
It's funny. I'm reminded of back in high school when I was just getting into making. I used to do video game design and whatnot, and
yeah,
my best friend at the time. Shout outs to the Raging Crow. He goes by Jay the Bard on social media now. We used to do, we did the whole gaming channel thing,
yeah,
together. And he was like, "Oh, dude, you should put this on Xbox Live." And I was like, "Well, I don't know, man, because Xbox, they're professional." And he's like, "No, dude, you don't understand. Like the bar is so low." And I was like, "Yeah, but I don't think." And so he just like he showed me like all the games that were available at the time on
yeah.
Xbox Live. This is like remember, this is like circa I want to say 2010 or 11,
Hmm.
and so like you had stuff like Monkey Poo Fling Simulator, and
Wow.
where
Okay.
it's a first person shooter where you're a monkey. It's like remember you used to play what's it called, Team Fortress Dead.
Yeah.
So imagine that, but it's just monkeys flowing poo on each other. That is the game. I'm not even kidding you. And there was
Crazy.
another game that was like borderline porn, and I was like, why is this on Xbox Live? And I was like, dude, listen, Rocket Brown. He was like, Rocket Brown can go on Xbox on the Game Boy store.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Crazy.
And I was like, and I realized like, yeah, the bar like if that could get exposed to millions of people, then why not my thing? And I say all that to say that the bar is not just low in video games, and I don't like. I'm not. Yeah, I'm no longer like what's it called? Timid about my writing.
Yeah.
Just because as you get older, you realize, man, the bar really is low.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Case in point, we've got some new Star Wars, y'all. Again, did they learn from uh, the success of the Mandalorian, or did they decide, nah, no, we could do this another way? And they
No,
did
I
not
would
learn. They
say
did
I would
not. They
say
did
no.
not learn. They did not learn.
No, they didn't. And that's
No,
been
no,
the question, right? Like, are they going to learn the right lessons? And so far, late, I think we've got some confirmation from Kathleen Kennedy herself that they have, in fact, not learned
yeah.
any
No,
lessons.
now,
They're,
for
they're
context,
just
I just
doubling
want to
down.
present. I'm not gonna pretend to be like a super Star Wars nerd. Like, I've seen the original movies. I like them. I've seen two of the Disney movies. I guess three. Well, I haven't seen. I've seen. I went to the theaters to see. I forgot what the movies were called. That's all. It was bad. But I saw the first Disney Star Wars movie, and then I saw
You're talking
the
about
Rise,
the Force Awakens.
Force Awakens,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
saw um, Rise of Skywalker. I did not see the second one, and I saw Rogue One. And I'll be
yeah,
honest,
yeah,
Rogue One is probably even. And I grew up with the. I did watch the prequel movies, and I'll be
yeah,
honest. I think I'll say right now, Rogue One is probably my favorite Star Wars movie, right next to what's it called? The Empire Strikes Back. So
yeah. I agree. And to be honest, when I first saw Rogue One in the theaters, I remember.
hmm
I think we went to see it, didn't we? I know your brother was with me.
yeah, we
Uh,
went to Associate.
yeah,
It was awesome.
and well, it wasn't bad. I was kind of like, okay, you know, yeah, I
No,
was
I
kind of like,
thought it was
okay,
great. I thought it was awesome. I
and
don't think I had more fun watching
yeah,
that.
but I wasn't. I don't know. I think for me, because I saw the original, right? I grew up, in the '80s and all that with the whole Star
Mm,
Wars craze, the TV specials and all that. And so there's a certain, and then obviously the George Lucas prequels, right? Remember those, and those were
yeah,
okay. But so watching Rogue One and watching it as a prequel, right, was kind of like, okay, this is, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it, right?
that's
But
fair.
I watched it again later once it hit streaming.
hmm
I was like, let me give it another watch because I was, like I said, I was kind of like, I don't know, because it was so, yeah, like it was different for
It
me,
was different from everything. You know, I
and
agree. I get it.
but watching it again, I gotta admit, I liked it even more.
Yeah,
Like before, I was kind of like, okay, that
and
was
a
okay.
big part of it is
Watching it
all the
again, I was like, this
characters.
is actually pretty good.
Yeah,
So yeah,
and a
yeah,
big part of it is all the characters left an impression on you, right? The
yeah, that's
blind
true.
dude, the not samurai,
Yeah,
the robot,
yeah,
and
definitely robot.
the two leads, like they all had great personalities. They all worked off each
Well,
other.
I'll put it this way: the two leads were okay. They were
Well,
the most boring of the group. The most interesting was the blind guy
sure,
and the robot.
but
They,
like
they they were the
I
most
didn't
interesting
hate,
characters.
I didn't
No,
hate
I didn't hate.
the
Yeah, I didn't hate them. They weren't terrible, but they were kind of vanilla. Um, there was nothing about them that was memorable, other than the fact that they die at the end. Right? Spoiler alert. It's been what, almost a decade, I guess. But yeah,
yeah.
they die. They
Oh,
sacrifice. Right?
also, Darth Vader's Luke's father.
Yeah. In case you didn't know. Shocker. But yeah, so, and I think that's the part that was kind of like, oh, like, it was very dramatic, compared to the originals. I think that's part of why, I was kind of like, I'm not sure, but watching it again, it was very good and it was compelling. But at the same time, and it had those Star Wars moments,
hmm
right? Like when the blind guy is like, I'm with the force and the force is with me and all this kind of stuff.
hmm
And he quote unquote gets lucky, right? And he's able to get through the barrage of fire,
Yeah, that was
laser
awesome.
fire, and that was a fun scene. And it's like I don't know, but then you get this dramatic, dark sort of ending, right? Where
Yeah.
they die, they all die. None of them survive, right? They all
Hmm.
die. Versus you can compare that to or contrast it with the originals, where they blow up the Death Star and everybody makes it out. Barely make it out, but they make it out, right?
All
It's
right, but keep in mind, I mean,
and
that's
you get
how
that
the
with the only time you get dark is with Empire Strikes Back, right, where Luke loses his
yeah, where everybody
hand.
loses.
They get captured. All this kind of is very is
Hand
very
gets frozen
melodramatic.
in
Yeah,
whatever.
it gets frozen in carbonite.
Yeah.
It's like that's where you're like, oh man, right? And they in the movie that way, right? It's like,
Yep.
whoa, like that was different, right? Um, but no one died, right? And then finally, Luke Skywalker he becomes, Jedi, right? He doesn't complete his training, but he's trained enough to where he's strong enough to take on what he needs to take on.
Yeah.
But and that was great. And once again, though, the only one that dies is the bad guy, right? Which is the Emperor and Darth Vader, right?
Yeah.
His father, which is quite satisfying, right? Because
Yeah.
it's also after he's somewhat redeemed, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and you contrast that with Rogue One, it's like everybody, all the heroes die. It's very, I don't know. I kind of feel like part of it is well, like I said, the movie is a good movie. I did enjoy it, but it's like it didn't feel quite like a Star Wars movie. Unless you're someone, and I'm not someone that's read all the books and all this kind. So maybe it was pulling from some of that. Although Kathleen Kennedy admits she didn't. They didn't pull from
Yeah, I was
decades.
about to
Yeah,
say.
so I can only assume they didn't pull, but it didn't feel quite like Star Wars until the end, where you get the Vader coming in and you know
And killing
taking out all
everybody.
the
Yeah, it
yeah,
was
like that
great.
was crazy. Like whoa, like but it was also kind of awesome because that's something that we haven't seen a lot of, right? Where Vader's kind of cutting loose and showing his
Yeah, you
full
only
power.
really see it in side stories. So
Yeah, so I thought that was an awesome scene. It was intense. Um, Even that though, with that, it's kind of the slaughter, and we got a lot of that in George Lucas's prequels, right? With the what was it, Rule 64, or I forget, Order 63, something like that. I forgot. But where they slay all the Jedi's, right? And Anakin goes and kills all these children. It's like, bro,
oh,
yeah. It's like, what's
oh,
happening
you're
with
talking order 60,
yes,
6 or
order
whatever.
something. Yeah, yeah. And it's like, what? Like, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, what is happening? Like, where we go from like just being captured, right, to just slaughter. Like, so I don't know. It's kind of that was kind of off putting to me then. Uh, but Rogue One, like I said, yeah, the fact that everyone kind of dies, it's like, wow, okay. But still, it was an overall good story. Um, and I don't know. It's like I kind of wonder, you know, well, I used to wonder. Now I kind of know what's happening, but it's like, what is the goal here, right? Because we already understand for the most part by this time the idea of woke and SJW themes being injected into franchises, right? That's the thing. It's become pretty well known, not only in social media circles, but even just out and about when you talk to people. A lot of people are more aware of that, right? And but I feel like that's more of an indicative of um, like it's an outstretch or a consequence of an more underlying issue of this sort of postmodern cynicism that exists among a lot of creatives, right, in mainstream Hollywood, where it's this sort of defeatist, like the hero can't always win. It's one thing to do it where, like a great example, and it's more recent, back, with in game, right? That was like what, 2018, 2019, where not in game. I'm sorry. Infinity War,
Mm-hmm.
where you know Thanos was the hero, even though he's the villain. He
Well, he
was
was
the
the
hero of
protagonist.
his
Yeah.
own story, right? Yeah, and he won, right? He got what he wanted, right?
Yeah.
That was like wow, like they lost, but in the context of that, we understood that well, they've lost for now, right? They're
Right.
gonna win in the next movie, right? And they do, right? And not without sacrifice, right?
Right.
But still they did win, and I thought that that's what made it very compelling and satisfying, even barring even the criticisms you can have for Endgame. That's what made it overall very satisfying was that payoff that in the end they did win, right? They were defeated at first, but they won, they overcame.
Yeah.
um, and that was I have to admit for me, it was great and it was surprising because we don't get a lot. We haven't gotten a lot of that, even back then, right? We didn't get a whole lot of that outside of the Marvel universe, right? The Marvel movie universe, and so that was nice to see. And it, it's like that's kind of what I see. Rogue One was kind of like that, right? And while at the same time we know later, right, Luke Skywalker and everything, the rebels
Yeah.
eventually defeat the Death Star, right?
Yeah.
Because they got those plans to to Princess Leia, right?
Right.
So we understand that, and that's what made it, like I said, on second watch, realizing the context is like, okay, that's
Yeah.
pretty good. Like to know that, yeah, people died to get these plans. That's how important it was. That's how it adds more weight and gravity to the originals, right? Where it picks up where Leia gets the plans and she gives them to R2D2 and all that stuff. And eventually it finally makes its way to the rebels and they use it to defeat the Empire. It's great, right? It's actually a nice addition in that sense, right? Because it sets up that context and it gives it that gravitas that it should have. That hey, people sacrificed and died to get these plans to give us this advantage, right? Against this massive, foreboding threat to the galaxy, right? So um, I like that, and so I can make an exception for Rogue One, you know, being kind of depressing, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it seems like it's just far too common now, where there's this sort of uh, defeatist, cynical approach to genres that aren't supposed to be filled with cynicism. Like superheroes aren't supposed to be cynical, right?
Yeah.
Now they can be, and there's certain characters where it fits and it kind of works, right? I'm not saying it can never be, but it seems like it's being injected into characters that aren't traditionally, like Superman.
Yeah.
You just watch Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman, and it's kind of like, who is this guy? Is that actually Superman or is he an imposter? Because
Right.
he's just depressed and like what's wrong with you, bro? You're supposed to represent truth and justice and hope and all these things, but I don't know. He had this sort of cynical approach uh, to everything, right?
Right.
It didn't really make a lot of sense considering like his own circumstances. It's like I don't know, and I think even Man of Steel, as cool of a movie as it was, and it had a lot of cool moments, great fight scenes. Story though, I didn't think the story was great. I think it was too early to introduce Zod. I feel like Man of Steel should have been about the Man of Steel becoming the Man of Steel, right?
Yeah.
And like it started off great with the whole traveling the world and like I've got to travel and figure out who I am, right? See this world and see what it has to offer. Okay, that's not bad, right? And in the course of that, he does these good deeds here and there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then it just takes this turn for the worse with Zod, um, and I don't know. It
Yeah.
just
It feels like two different movies. I'm not gonna
yeah,
lie.
it kind of does, and I think where for me, in retrospect, rewatching the movie later on, I realized it went off the rails when um, kind of a couple places in the way he handled the father, right, Jonathan Kent, and his own
Yeah.
fear of, and which is
Yeah, that was.
is legit. Like the fear is legit, especially when he's young. It's like, yeah, you don't know his potential, and you don't want them, the government, etc., to exploit him, right? And so, yeah, you got to keep it under wraps, right? People are going to fear you, they won't understand, etc.
Yeah, but I still feel like they handled it awfully because he's basically saying, "Hey, you gotta hide your powers, even if it means people are gonna die."
You're
And then
right.
two,
Yeah,
like he could have easily, like, he dies in the most contrived way possible, in which Superman's identity or Clark's powers wouldn't have been compromised, and he would have been
yeah.
left alive. Like in the
Well,
original
well,
movie, it was his death meant something because Superman can't prevent a heart attack,
exactly. Right,
right?
right.
He died
And
from
that's
natural.
what I mean. That's what I'm saying. It was a missed kind of a missed opportunity where, like, I understand from a certain vantage point, it's his father, his earth father, loved him so much and wanted to protect him, even to the point that he was willing to die to keep his secret, because in other words, he didn't want to be the cause of his secret being revealed, right? He's like, no, don't save me. That, like earlier in the scene, they set it up where he's like, should I have done nothing when he saved the bus from the kids? And he goes, I don't know, maybe, right? And then later it's like he's like, look, I'm willing to include myself. Like, don't save me either and expose yourself, right?
I mean,
You
yeah, at
can
least in
reveal
that sense, he
yourself,
wasn't
right?
a hypocrite. But
No, he
I don't
wasn't. That's
know.
what I mean. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
criticizing the characterization itself in the sense that he was inconsistent. I just don't think that it
No, I
made
just don't
sense.
agree with it. That's
Yeah, I
I
don't
just
agree
don't
with it
agree.
because I feel like it's a very cynic approach versus saying, look, you know, like in contrast, you mentioned the Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner movies, and in that movie, his father dies of a heart attack, and he dies literally right there in front of right, like he's on the farm with him, and he collapses, and there's nothing he can do, and they say that they express that in the next scene where they're doing his funeral, and he says, I have all these powers, and I couldn't save him, right? and
Yeah,
it, and the subtext is there that, look, Superman is Superman, but at the same time he's as human as we are. He has limitations, right?
right.
And so what's the lesson is, do the best you can with what you have, but just understand there's always going to be limitations. You can't do everything. You can't save everyone. What happens later in the movie? Lex Luthor gives him the ultimate choice, right? Like,
Yeah, save
you
Lois or
save, yeah,
stop a missile.
save,
Yeah,
yeah, and it's like, and he chooses to save one missile at the expense of letting the other hit California, right? For whatever
yeah,
reason, maybe it was closer, but right. But you understand, like, he couldn't save everyone. That was the whole point. You are Superman, but you're not a god, right? You can't be everywhere at once. You have your limitations, and we can understand that as, look, we can do the best we can with whatever we have, right? Whatever talents, whatever strengths we have, but we're always going to be limited somehow, right? Because that's reality,
yeah.
and that's a beautiful lesson. That's a beautiful thing. And it gets ruined at the end with the whole time travel.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it really does. It's like, yeah, I mean, it would have been nice if, let's say, he thought Lois was dead and he's angry and he goes after Lex Luthor, and Lex Luthor is prepared. He has like another fortress somewhere. I don't know,
Well, I just
you
think
know,
Jimmy should have saved
but
him.
what else was I going to say? But then Jimmy comes along and he resuscitates her, right? Because Superman already pulled her out and he lays her on the ground, right? And so Jimmy's there and he resuscitates. He calls whatever, right? You understand? Maybe some other people come and they're like, oh my god, like they try to help, and they get her to a hospital, and guess what? She survives barely, but right. And it's all because he did, in fact, save her, even though he thought she was dead, right? Or maybe she was, but they brought her back, right? They resuscitated. But
Yeah,
that would have been way better. And then, like I said, he goes after Lex Luthor in the rage. And even then, it's like, now it's like, are you this principled hero and you're going to bring him to justice, or are you going to take justice in your own hands?
Yeah.
right? And that would have been a great ending where he doesn't. Obviously, he doesn't, but he does take out Luthor. And that could have been like a cool thing where maybe he has like a bunch of robots, or I don't know, or just a bunch of like salvos of missiles, whatever. And Superman takes him out and brings him to justice, right? Even though he could kill him, right? But he doesn't, right? He resists. And I think that's something that was missed. I don't know. Maybe it was a budget. Who knows, right? I don't know why they did the
Well,
whole.
to my
You know.
understanding, to be fair, they were filming Superman 1 and Superman 2 at the same time.
Well, yeah,
So,
yeah, but
yeah, it was
still, we're
probably a
talking
time
about
thing.
story here. It's kind of like, look,
No,
hey, why
I
don't we just
agree.
have them reverse time? Like, okay, that makes no sense, but so that's where the movie falls short. Even as a kid watching that, I was like, this is
Yeah.
dumb, right? Like, I knew it was
I
ridiculous.
thought
I
it was
still love the
cool,
movie.
but I understand
It's cool,
why
but
it
it's
doesn't
still
work.
dumb, right? Like, it's like it's only dumb because he reverses time in a very specific way, right?
Yeah.
And like it's like what?
He
So what about
spins the
everything
earth
else?
backward.
Yeah, what about the people that like it makes even with Lois? It's like what? Because didn't he pull her out? You start to overthink it. You're like, okay, this is ridiculous, right? So it's a comic book movie.
Yeah.
At the
But
end of the day, you just gotta
yeah.
dismiss it. But yeah, it's like, but there's still an air of hope, right? With our hero. Our hero was not
Yeah.
cynical, even though there was uh, the potential for cynicism, right? When that in that scene when Lois dies, right? But you know, he doesn't go there, right? And he figures out a way to save her, of course. Um, but I think it would have been better if, you know, like I said, if Jimmy or somebody, but
Yeah.
still, you maintain the character's character, right?
Yeah.
But in contrast to today, like Man of Steel, I don't feel like like Henry Cavill was great. He's a great cast. He was perfect actually. Um, so it's no shade on him. It's just story wise, it's like I don't know. It's like what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Like I don't get what's. And I know a lot of that's from more recent comics and everything, and different reboots, New 52, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I'm going by like for me, I've been a fan of the animated versions of Superman, and obviously the Christopher Reeves, and so that's my sort of gauge, you know. So um, if I'm off and Superman's supposed to be cynical in the comics, I don't know. Let me know. But from what I've seen
I
in
don't think
television,
so,
he's been a
but
symbol of hope and truth and justice. And you know, even in the Bruce Timm, Superman animated series and Justice League Ultimate and Unlimited, he was way more. He was still the quote unquote Boy Scout. Although I love the way they handled him, especially in Unlimited, where he matured, he was intelligent, he wasn't naive, right?
yeah.
Like a good example is the episode where he fights Captain Marvel,
Captain Marvel, yeah.
right? And it was a beautiful contrast between sort of what Superman used to be, which is Captain Marvel, and what he had become, which is at that time, Superman. And the fact that Captain Marvel, he was hopeful, right? And he gave people the benefit of a doubt, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Superman used to be, right? That was kind of the point, right? It's like here's this kid who becomes this, basically becomes like Superman, and but he still has that sort of naivete of a child, right? That
Yeah.
sees the world like, hey, the world is beautiful and there's bad guys and we take them out, right? And it's black and white. And Superman, who used to be that, now realizes, yeah, it's not black and white. There's nuance and there's gray areas and there's and that was kind of like a awesome. I mean, it was awesome just to see the fight, but
Oh yeah.
just the contrast that was presented, it was like,
Hmm.
yeah, like they're both right. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
Captain Marvel, we should have this, give people benefit of the doubt, let people be redeemed, right? Allow people who are trying to change and become better, let them become better, right? But at the same time, you know, don't be a fool. You know, you know what I mean? Like, don't. don't be fooled by those who would pretend to be redeeming themselves and they're not, right? Like, and
Yeah.
obviously we saw that with the Lex Luthor character, of course, and super. And it turns out Superman was right,
I
right?
was right.
Like, but see,
He
but this,
wasn't right in the way he thought he was right,
yeah,
though.
exactly, he wasn't, because that's the whole point. He failed to see that he was being played, right? And so, and it's almost ironic because it still shows that Superman is still kind of in that Captain Marvel mindset of seeing Luthor as this black and white character. He's just evil. There is no good. There is no potential for good, right? Everything he does, even though in that moment for that particular thing, it actually was good. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
was a good thing, and he Superman destroyed it
Yeah.
because he saw things black and white with Lex Luthor. So you know what I mean? Like there's a lot you can like really dig in there and pull out these nuggets and go, yeah, like it's a brilliant storytelling. So that's why I think that series, basically everything Bruce Timm, you know, is just magnificent because the writing was just beautiful and it wasn't this postmodern cynical. It was
Mm-hmm.
something. They handled the heroes and kept them characterized as they were intended to be. Even with Batman, right? It's dark, but it doesn't go too dark. And even with Batman, there was still this essence of hope with him, right? And inspiration, and and it was just handled great. And I want more of that. I want more stories like that versus kind of what we're getting. And but getting back to what I was saying about like with the Acolyte and Star Wars,
Oh, of course,
and
yeah.
how it's like what we're seeing
Well, the
outplayed with the emphasis on woke, right, and injecting DEI content. A lot of it is money driven for one, but it is also ideologically driven, right? But it's done in a way where it's very sort of cold, right? It's not inspired, and that's part of the problem and the criticism. And people like Kathleen Kennedy, like her recent comments about how Star Wars is, dominantly male. You know,
I don't
it's
know
like
why.
no duh, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I was
I mean,
about to say.
you know what I mean? But she speaks of it as if it's problematic, and she thinks that
What?
when people like when fans, particularly male fans, lash out and comment and reject what she's putting out there, she thinks it's or I can't say what she thinks, but what she says and how she frames it is, well, it's because they're women, right? It's because there's men who don't like women, and it's like that's it's false. B is disingenuous, and it's an unfair characterization because it denies what's actually happening,
Yeah.
right? And what's actually happening is you're creating a straw man. You're creating a fake problem, right? Because guess what? Women existed in Star Wars prior to you taking it over, right? We had Princess Leia, right? We had Ashoka, right? I mean,
Yeah, I was
it's
about to
like
say, it's like,
there are
yeah, everybody
female
loved Ahsoka.
characters in Star Wars, and they were great. Fans, male and female, loved them, right? There was no animosity, and they had agency and all that good stuff that characters have, right? So to pretend like there was some kind of vacuum of, there's this demand for female representation in Star Wars. Let's fill that demand. No, there wasn't, because it was already there for one, and two, yes, it's male dominated. That's a great thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Just like Barbie is female dominated, right? Is that problematic that Barbie is her fans are predominantly female? I would say no, it's not, because that's the intent, right? And with Star Wars, whether it's the intent or not, that's the framework that's been given, and those are the people who respond to it, which is mostly men, mostly
Like, those
white
are the
male
people
men,
giving you the
right?
money, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't see it as problematic. It's not problematic, and I resent when people try to frame it that way, as if we're being sexist or misogynistic
Well,
or
it's the
racist.
whole thing with, I guess another good example is sports, in the sense that you don't see, and this is gonna sound mean, but you don't see people complaining that there's not enough white people in basketball. You get what I'm saying?
Right, right. That's exactly right.
It's like nobody.
That
It's
that
like
would be absurd. Yeah,
yeah,
not because they shouldn't be playing, but it's
no,
like yeah, we understand that
because
for
it's a
whatever
non.
reason, whatever the dynamics involved, right?
Yeah,
It's become predominantly African American.
and like
Okay,
nobody is complaining.
and no one complains. Like white fans, right? White basketball fans do not complain that hey, I want to see more like me,
Now
right?
there are
No one's doing
specific
that.
complaints that I have heard about sports, but it's not. It's never about oh, there's too many
It's never
black people.
yeah, it's never about the over representation of
Yeah, oh, you know what I'm saying?
same with baseball.
It's like
Same,
yeah,
it's
because
like because it's
black people
reality,
like I
right?
don't know what to tell you. Yeah,
Yeah, we understand that the way life works is certain factors contribute to why. Just like in hockey, there's it is predominantly white. Right? Why? Well, generally speaking, that's where white
because
people live. They live in
because
cold places
yeah,
where
'cause black people
hockey
don't like the
becomes a
cold. Like
primary
what do you
sport.
expect? Yeah,
Yeah, so now that doesn't mean if hockey were available here in LA growing up, right, that African American kids or Latino kids wouldn't participate. Sure, they would, right? But it's just that's just how it's like basketball is that accessible sport. That's part of it. Like it's so
yeah,
nuanced, right? You can't even say like it's because of this.
yeah,
It's like, well,
exactly.
it's very nuanced. There's so many factors,
Hmm.
right? Um, you
And
can
you're right.
judge which factors are
Basketball, and
good or
football are
bad.
probably the most accessible sports because you
Right.
can play
And
basketball
right.
anywhere. You can play
Yeah,
football anywhere.
anywhere,
You can
any time of
throw a
year
ball anywhere.
you can play it indoors or outdoor. Right, exactly. And that's just surface level.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like that's just surface level versus like baseball. Generally, a lot of people from the Midwest, but then they recruit guys from South America, right? And
yeah,
they play a lot of they love baseball, right? Like and then there's soccer. Like you understand? Like
yeah,
it's just it's just life, right? And then, but you try to apply that logic to movies and say, well, it it needs more women because they're just focusing on men, and it's like, well, no, not necessarily. It just happens to appeal to men, right? And that's not a bad thing, right? Although there's a lot of female Star Wars fans already for of the original films and everything, so it's not like there's just no female. But
yeah,
then the solution though, right, isn't to say, well, let's just make let's just go all in
yeah.
like
Let's make the force
feminism.
female, whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, like yeah, the force is female. Like it's like girl power, or girl boss. It's like that makes no sense, right? Because then now you're isolating your core fans, right? And then you're pandering to these pretend fans because let's face it, everything they've done insofar as gender swapping and or injecting more female hasn't brought in a single new
no,
fan, new female fan, right? It's like no one. It's like the WNBA. The WNBA, the majority of their fans are still men. Why?
it's
Because
not a
generally
lot of
speaking,
men.
men,
It's
yeah, but it's still men. It's not women aren't watching WNBA in general, right? Sure, there's few out there, but relatively speaking, it's mostly men that's supporting it. You understand?
yeah,
That's keeping it going. Even now with this uptick in popularity, right? Because of a college player, I forgot her name. I can't, but you understand? Like it's still going to be more men. Why? Because men like sports. You understand? Like that's
yeah.
it. Men like
No,
sports.
yeah,
Like
no,
we
I
like
get.
sports. It's
It's-
I'm not saying women don't like sports. Obviously, women do like sports. They're playing basketball. They're playing tennis, and
Yeah.
volleyball. All this stuff. But
Speaking of fake fans,
yeah,
I think it's funny when you. I mean, you could just look at the toy sales. Nobody is buying any of the new Star Wars toys.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I
because
remember
they're not
someone
appealing.
posted. Yeah,
They don't appeal. They don't appeal to anyone, but particularly the male sensibility, right? And part of it is the type of characters, right? Many of them are either female, and then what's attached to those female characters is a story that no one cares about,
yeah,
right? There's no mythos that gets you excited. And then with the male characters, they've been kind of upstaged and kind of put on the back, and so they're not meaningful, right?
Yeah.
because how they're for the same reason. There's nothing compelling about the male characters. They're just pandering to female in the stories.
Yeah.
Then the females themselves, well, there's nothing compelling about them. So, as a young, kid, especially a little boy, I'm not gonna buy it. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna ask my parents for it. And then, like I said, they're not recruiting actual new female fans to replace the male fans that are leaving, right? So it's just creating
Yeah.
this vacuum of like they're not talking to anybody, right?
Yeah.
That's why I always pose the question: who is this for? It's not for anyone, even if they're claiming under the guise of representation for women or something, or female empowerment. Yeah, but they're not watching it. Like look at I think it was the Marvels, right, when it came out. Like 54%, 60% male went to watch that movie. You understand? So even then, a movie with all female lead actors and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Still heavily supported by men, right?
Hmm.
Why? Because I don't know. Because men like superheroes, right? Who created superheroes in first? Mostly men, right? The comic book industry, and it has nothing to do with a slight against women or anywhere. It's just that's just how it played out.
Yeah.
Period. It's how it is, right? It has nothing to do with some mythological patriarchy that's oppressing women. No, it's not. It's just women don't do those things. They do other things, right? Um, that's it.
Yeah.
It really is that simple. And but we convolute it and complicate it with comments like what she's making, implying that somehow it's problematic that
And,
it's
it's
predominantly men.
ironic because I mean, it's very clear that this Kennedy and a lot of most of the people working on Star Wars, and this is a issue I have with a lot of stuff. They don't actually care about Star Wars.
Right?
They
They
don't
don't. They
like. I
don't.
remember I was just the thing I was laughing at earlier was one of the actors in the new series. Um, he was like he made a comment about like oh well Anakin destroyed the Death Star. You know how many people died during that? I'm like, wait a minute, Anakin didn't destroy the Death Star. Like,
Right.
listen, I'm not
They
even.
know nothing about the
Yeah,
property. And look, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm some hardcore,
no, I'm not. And here's
but
the
I at least
thing.
know like the basics.
Yeah, here's the thing.
Like
It's
come on.
like, I think perfect example. What's his name? Henry. Not. I thought to say Henry Ford.
Henry Cavill?
No, the guy who plays Han Solo.
Oh, Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford. There we go. Harrison Ford. He does not like. He does not care about Star Wars. He does not care about Star Wars. Every time you see him in interviews and they try to bring up Star Wars, he's like, "Oh, it was a movie. Oh,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
whatever."
yeah. He didn't really care for Star Wars.
He break.
Much.
The one meme where he someone made him a Lego version of his ship and he
Yeah,
breaks it. Like, it's fun. But here's the thing: he doesn't pretend. He does not pretend
yeah. I
to
agree.
give a
Yeah,
crap
at
about
least
Star
he's honest.
Wars.
Like, look, it was a job. I did it.
Yeah, and that's
And that's
fine. I
fine.
can
Yeah,
respect
I
that.
mean,
But
yeah, I'm
these
not mad at
people
him for
are
that.
actively pretending to be like, yeah,
Right? They're pretending to be excited.
Boba Fett killed Darth. He didn't say,
Yeah,
but you know what I'm saying? It's
yeah,
like
about something that right. They haven't taken the
just
time
don't do that.
to even find out. Like at least take like every actor or director, whoever that is chosen to do an IP, doesn't have to already be a fan of the IP. I
No,
don't
no.
necessarily agree with that, but I do believe that you should take the time to research the IP and find out.
And
Okay,
also
what is this all
understand
about?
why people like it.
Yeah, why do people like what's appealing? What are the things that makes it what it is, right? That makes it special, and figure out how to translate that into your project. That's but you have to be kind of become a fan. Like you, I feel like you can't be an auteur, right? You can't come in and say I'm going to direct this film about dolphins, but I hate dolphins. You know what I mean? Or not only that, but I know nothing about dolphins. It ain't even about I
Yeah,
hate dolphins. I know nothing about dolphins. I don't know anything about the ocean, sea
yeah,
life, nothing.
yeah,
But I'm going to direct this film about dolphins. It makes no sense, right? You're going to do
yeah,
your research. You're going to, like look at Disney, old Disney when they were actually doing good stuff. with Ratatouille, they flew their animators to Paris,
Well, that was
and they
Pixar,
taste
but yeah,
and
I
they
agree.
well, it's still Disney, but they and they sampled French cuisine, and you understand they drew
Yeah.
pictures of the
Well, I only
food,
say that
right?
because I feel like the Pixar specifically has. I feel like even though they're a part of Disney, is like that. They're their own
No,
like
they're not. They're
team.
not anymore.
Well, not anymore, but at the
Maybe
time, yeah.
maybe then, yeah, maybe by the time they did Rat, maybe they were still, but not anymore.
No, they're not.
Pixar has lost its way, but that's another conversation. But yeah, but you understand what I'm saying? They did the research to figure out, okay, what is it all about this French cuisine and the whole idea of being a French chef, and all these why, so that this rat that we're going to animate it's going to be right. You
Yeah,
understand? It's
we're
like,
good.
so if they could do that, right? I'm not saying they have to fly somewhere, but it's like
Well,
just
no, but here's the
go
thing.
to a bookstore and pick out some Star Wars
But
novels.
there's a
Go
commonality
go
with that.
look up the comics. Go
Hmm.
watch the original movies, right? Like
Yeah, but
that's the basics,
but
right?
there's a commonality with that passion, right? Not just with Pixar, but with everything, right? It's one of my favorite games of all time, Sonic Adventure.
Mm,
Uh, Much of the settings and the levels are inspired by um, Aztec culture and architecture and stuff like that.
right.
The whole, when you look at the design process, the entire Sonic team took a trip to Mexico to learn
Mm,
about Aztec Road. Yeah.
yeah,
So
they
it's like,
did.
no,
Yeah,
that's,
exactly. Yeah,
you
that's
know
what
what
I'm
I'm
saying.
saying? It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, when
it's
you
like,
care
of
about something,
course.
you put in like, that shows you, many of the levels in Sonic are based off of like real street, like Emerald Hill Zone.
Yeah,
Emerald Hill is I think it was an actual street in San Francisco. Same thing with City Escape. City Escape was designed after San Francisco. Where's Sonic Team where's Sonic Team America located at the time?
yeah,
California.
mhm,
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. Yeah.
they're pulling in real
Right,
stuff.
but they're putting in the effort to
Yeah,
say let's do this right.
you
Let's
know.
make it make sense, and
Um,
that's kind of what I'm saying with with Star Wars specifically, but even Marvel and a lot of other. It's like it's clear, and they they've pretty much admitted this. Like a lot of the actors and the writers and the producers, they don't do the research. They're not
no,
reading the source material. They're not. They're just like, well, we're just gonna do what we want to do. We're going to put our spin on it. We're going to inject our ideology into this because they think that's creative somehow. And it's like that's not creativity. That's just you're just creating propaganda, and that gets frustrated. That frustrates a lot of people, even the most um, um, basic fan, like someone who's not even a hardcore fan. They're
yeah,
starting to see it. They're starting to feel like, yeah, they're really not giving me their best, right? That last movie or that last TV show, it's just not great, right? Like, and they're starting to sense that and see it, and that's why they're not showing up to the box office, and that's why they're not tuning in to these shows. And Disney Plus, the people are dropping it, like a hot potato, man. Like I've dropped it, for that reason. I'm just like I just don't see the
yeah,
value anymore, and I think it's many levels, right? There's many factors, right? A major factor is the economy is not great, and paying for a streaming service is not exactly a priority, right?
yeah,
Or even going to a movie. But then what compounds it is the quality that you're getting for the money you're spending. It's not worth it to me if I'm constantly being barraged with things that I don't personally agree with, that are, or you're hitting me over the head, um, with, just preaching at me about, you know, this so-called virtue of acceptance or
yeah,
equity, like, and it's always just on the nose, right? It's never subtle, it's never nuanced, it's always just, the patriarchy, like they literally say that, or girl power. They literally, I remember watching, and this is years ago, but watching, what show was that? It was one of the DC shows that was streaming at the time, and I
mm-hmm.
remember it was all the female characters in the show, and they had us. and the whole conversation, the whole scene was cringe, right? And they ended the scene saying "girl power" and like fist bumping each other, and I was like, I'm done. And I never finished. I don't even remember the show. I never finished it. I was like, I'm done with this. Like this is stupid. Not because girls are bad or it's like, but let's just flip the script where you got guys and they're like super machismo and they're like God power. You're like, and it's not a joke. It's not intended to be a joke. It's not intended to be satire, right? You're
Yeah,
gonna go like, this is dumb,
yeah.
right? Like they're serious. Like they're presenting it as if it's a
Well, I think
serious, real
their
thing,
perception.
and that's the problem.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not satire, and that's what I'm saying. Like if it was satire, it'd be like okay,
Yeah.
they're having
A
fun
big
with
problem, and I think it feels like that their perception of male bonding or whatever you want to call it is literally just that. So like, oh, we just have to do the reverse of that. When
it.
it's
Yeah,
like, no,
that's
that's not
very
true. Like
yeah,
when
that's a
you
good
look
point
at some of the
actually.
most, there's a meme, right?
Yeah,
Where it's two girls talking, and it's like, oh, he didn't even cry during the Titanic, because of the scene where the boyfriend dies. It's like, oh man, do
yeah,
men even have feelings? And then like it's the dude on the bottom, and he's thinking about, you know, insert what was that scene where he's like, he's not heavy, he's my brother.
yeah,
The
yeah,
football movie. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so. Yeah,
Or you'll put uh you know the this the scene. For me, it was the scene where in the Kingdom Come, where Superman tells well, Batman finds out that Wonder Woman is pregnant, and
right.
in this timeline, Superman and Wonder Woman are a thing in the Kingdom Come series.
Yeah,
But what surprises him when Superman is like, "Yeah, we want you to be his godfather," and Batman's like, "Huh?" And then like he gives him a hug. Like it was a great. That was a great scene. I was like,
yeah,
"Hell yeah!"
yeah,
I was like, "Yeah."
yeah. The whole book is great. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's like that scene. Like for me, it's like yeah, that's because it's like or uh what's the I'm trying to like the things that I don't know. They think the things that really like
well,
that
it's the perception of men that's caricatured,
yeah
right? And it's simple. It's similar to like people like to talk about blackface back in the day, right? Where you had white people putting on blackface and they're pretending to be black, to act black, and but it was obviously extreme and
yeah
satirized and caricatured actions, right? Performance, the way they
yeah
talk, and it's like that's kind of I think what's happening in a certain way with some of these women, not all women, but a lot of the women like Kathleen Kennedy who are devout feminists, whatever, and they have this perception of men that's caricatured. It's not a real perception; it's a caricatured perception, right? And I think that's happening with like trans stuff, right? You have men pretending to be women, and but they're acting like a caricatured version of a woman, right?
yeah
Like that Dylan Mulvaney person, right? It's like you're just pretending to be a woman. You're acting in a way that you think women act, and it's always this most extreme, presentation. Right? It's never like a nuanced, subtle. It's always this extreme, the way you laugh, walk, talk, all this stuff.
oh
Like
yeah
it's never like a nuanced performance, so to speak, where you're like, oh, I guess it could be a woman, right? Like, no, you're like, no, that's just an extreme. And it's the same. Like, it's this. I think that's what's happening with presenting men, right? Especially white men, because they are targeted. Whether people like it or not, it's true. Um, it's kind of crazy. It's upside down world, I suppose. But it's
yeah
like, but yeah, it's like they're presented in a way, right? Either they're presented to be very weak or very angry and dominant, right? And it's like, well, those are both extreme presentation, just like
yeah
black men, right? You see a lot of these more feminist driven movies and shows. They love to present black men subservient to white women, to liberal white women,
Wow.
Always very clean and very if they're not flat out all right, 100% gay, they you're questioning if they're gay, right? Because they
I
look so
don't. I guess I
effeminate and
don't
they act
watch
very,
enough television.
yeah, they act very effeminate, and it's kind of, it's kind of odd, right? But it's like that's their
Yeah,
perception.
that sounds
That's
odd.
the image they want to present, black men, right? Being weak, being effeminate, being, subservient, and it's they do the same with white men on many levels, and it's like, but it's like I said, it's that caricatured, um, you know, perception. It's not a realistic perception of a man. It's just extreme, right? And yeah, I think you're right. It's like that's what's driving it, and so when you see it, you're like, and unfortunately, like I say with that scene, it's like, yeah, and they're doing the same thing with women in many ways, right? Um, you're not a representing a real woman. You're representing this idealized woman, right? That gets everything right, never makes mistakes. You know, uh, girl power, right? Boss babe, all this kind of stuff. And it's done in a way where it's just,
Well,
like I say,
they're
it's cringe. Like it's
basically
just like, okay, I can't even like, even within the context of this fantasy genre, right?
well, they're essentially
I still
skipping
can't
all the steps
accept
of
it.
the hero's journey
Yeah, that's what I
and
mean. I
thinking
still
that
can't
they still
grasp it.
qualify as
Yeah,
heroes.
yeah. You just want to reject it automatically because it's not at least trying to build this character into the hero. It's like, boom, there it is. She's already there. And they call it the Mary Sue, in writing, but it's like, yeah, that's part of the problem. Is it's just lacks. So, and now, and it's interesting because I saw someone post the other day. He's an actor. I believe he was in, man, what was that series? I'm I can't think of it, but it'll probably
Which
come to
one?
me. Um, it was a Netflix series. No, it was on Max. It was on HBO Max. Um, it was like sci-fi, hyper futuristic. He played one of
Okay.
the characters, and he was. I guess he was like an android, and then they paired him with a female android, and she was white, right? And he was
Uh huh.
talking about how there was a lot of criticism because of that, right? Because people saw it as, oh, here's that, basically a DEI stuff, right? Even though this was years ago, even, it's been going on for
Oh, so this isn't a
two
new
decades.
show.
No, this is an older show. I just wish I could remember. It actually wasn't too bad. I watched most of the first season. But but anyway, he was talking about it because I guess he's putting on a video game, and I guess it's a very diverse video game. Meaning it has characters that are representative of many different, you know, um, ethnicities or whatever. And I'm not sure what he didn't really show any part of the game, so I don't know what game it was. But he made interesting points about how people see him in these roles, right? Or they see now he's putting out this game, and it's a obviously diverse game, and the first reaction is, oh, that's that DEI stuff. That's woke. It's SJW stuff, right? And he's like, it's frustrating, right? Because it's like, I'm just an artist. I'm trying to create art, and he's like, video games are for everyone. And it's kind of funny because that's a symptom of the problem, right? Is his conclusions just like Disney, right? And Kathleen Kennedy, their conclusions are wrong. Like they think the negativity is about, oh, well, you're being racist, right? Or you're being sexist. And it's like, no, the majority of the negativity is about, please stop preaching to me and telling me I'm a terrible person because I don't agree with a certain lifestyle or because I don't have enough black friends. Or, you know what I mean? Like, stop, stop hitting me over the head with, diversity, equity, inclusion. Like, stop race swapping my favorite character. Stop gender swapping my favorite character. Stop doing these. Excuse me. These
So why do you think?
pairings of male characters
Yeah.
and saying that now it's a bromance. Like I hate that
Yeah.
term bromance. It's so stupid because now
Well, so
you can't have a male best friend and have it not be perceived as gay.
yeah,
And
it's
unfortunately, a lot of
silly.
men participate in it too. Like Although with guys we tend to do it in a jokingly
Well,
manner,
usually it's
but now it's,
sarcasm, but
right. But it's like now it's taken like it's a real thing. Like Batman and Superman
nah,
have a bromance. It's like no, they don't. They're just friends, right? Like they're. It's like
it's
you can't
a
even have a
statement.
story about two men who are just best friends. There's always that insinuation that it's gonna be gay, right? And
Well, so
that's what I'm
what?
saying. Like it's happening so much, right?
Yeah,
That you've kind of had this saturation, sort of blowback, right, from fans who are now when they see a black lead in a something like his part in that show, or especially because he was paired with a white woman, right? It's an interracial. The from his vantage point, he's saying they're racist, but what's really happening is it's like, well, why are you pairing this black man with a white woman? It doesn't make sense within the context of like the story. Why would like the logic isn't there, right? And that's what people are commenting. It's like this feels like it's forced. It doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel creative. It feels like you're checking a box. And
so
so
do
when you
you?
see other things like his video game, and like I said, I haven't seen his game, so I don't know what it looks like or what. I'm just saying like that's really what's happening. It's the
Well,
blowback, and unfortunately, even though with his intention is probably isn't, just like our project, we have a black lead. Like one of our main characters is black, right?
yeah.
A lot of our characters are black, but we also have characters that are white, etc. And it's like, but when you see that, I, people will automatically go, "Oh, is that some SJW stuff, right? Is that some kind of woke?" And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. It affects our tours who really are just creating art, and that art happens to feature a non-white character or a female character, right? And it's not all like everything that a just speaking as a black person, everything that a black artist does isn't always about being black, right?
Right. Yeah.
And but what happens is right, because we have this forced diversity happening on such a massive scale, right? Well, the natural blowback is whenever I see anything black, I'm going to assume it's some kind of SJW woke, you know, hidden Marxist agenda. You understand? Even if it isn't, right? Then the initial impression is going to be, well, is it woke? Is it some?
Uh,
And
are,
that's
are you
it's
are you
unfortunate
saying that it's a consequence of
of
uh,
DEI, of just of artificially creating diversity, right? Artificially, like I said, checking boxes versus allowing, artists to be artists, right? Instead of going and saying, okay, we need a black guy, we need a black female, we need an Asian, like you don't do that. You just go, well, who's the best for this part, right? Let's write this story, right? And let's cast actors and actresses that fit the part, right? It's not about diversity. So if the cast ends up being all white, so be it. If it ends up being all mostly white, but there's a couple of black people or a couple of Asian people or Latino people, so be it, right? It's like it was never a question. Like if you watch, like a Quentin Tarantino movie, you know, um, you're not gonna go, okay, they check some boxes, right? Like you didn't do that
no,
with, you
no.
understand? Like you're not. You're just gonna go, well, this is his movie. He's just making a movie, and it happens to have these characters who happen to be this race or that race. And maybe his intention as an artist, right, is yeah, I want this character, and I want to be black because I want to do this or act like that or look like that, right, and so forth and so on. That's the artist making those artistic choices versus executives and studio heads who are saying, well, we need that DEI money, so we got to check these boxes, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, and so the blowback is when people are rejecting the artificial stuff, which they should, right? I believe like black folks in particular should reject race swap characters. We should be like, no, I don't want that. I don't want sloppy seconds. I don't want secondhand, right? I want an original, authentic black character. I want Cyborg because he's an original character, right? You
Yeah.
understand? Like, I want him. I want him to have a series or a movie. I want Static Shock. I want Icon, right? Excuse me. You understand what I'm saying? Like, because those are original characters. Yeah, they're inspired by other characters. That's fine. That's a difference from being inspired by a previous character versus just being a race swapped character. You understand? Like John Stewart is a great character. He's been fleshed out very well in television in particular, right? But yeah, he's inspired by the original Green Lantern, right? But we understand the
I mean,
context of that is, well, there's a whole core. So they're from various planets. There's several from Earth. So you can accept that, okay, there's a Green Lantern who's black, but he's not Kyle Rayner. He's not a race swap
yeah, he's not
Kyle
Hal
Rayner.
Jordan.
He is John Stewart. He's a different character. He has his own backstory. He has his own origins. He has his own characteristics, right? And that's all I'm saying. And that's what I think what needs to happen is we need to do that in mass. Like we need to do that as just a principle that, hey, you guys try to shove this race swap, or gender swap characters. Like, nah, man, stop being lazy, right? Stop pandering, and do the work you need to do as an auteur and create something good, something beautiful, something awesome, something that inspires, and something original, right?
So
Um,
often when people, I guess the counter argument to that for most people is, oh well, you know when people do create original black characters, then you don't support them or whatever.
well, I don't think that's necessarily true.
I don't think
Uh,
it's true. I think
I
a
think
lot of
what happens
the
is in the mainstream, they don't support original black content. So that's why it seems like it gets ignored because they are ignoring it. They
when you
literally
say
are.
they,
the
uh,
the mainstream Hollywood, system.
oh
They're ignoring originality in general, but especially original black characters. They don't want that because original black characters, many of them will not fall into the sort of archetype they have laid out in their own system, their own minds, right? And they don't want us to deviate from their perception of us. Like they put us in a box, and they're like black people are supposed to be this. So when you create an original black character, that most of the time, like I've seen so many um, original black characters in a lot of these comic book groups, artist groups, etc., and they're phenomenal. They're beautiful, and none of them, not saying none of them, but many of them aren't like their stories aren't
yeah
about being black or oppressed. Their stories are just, hey, this is a great character who has this adventure, and he happens to be black. That's you understand, and so
yeah
he's not. This character isn't falling into what's been sort of accepted as like the archetype of a black character, right?
yeah. I
And
would
I
also
think that's
say
the problem with the mainstream Hollywood is they want it to fit into that. Like look at Finn. Finn is a great example in Star Wars. Speaking of going back to Star Wars, that was an opportunity to create another original black character in within the Star Wars mythos, right? And they completely blew it because he had to be subservient to a white woman. He had to be basically weak. Then they put him with what's his name? I forgot his name. Poe or whatever his name, right? And
oh
then
the
they
pilot.
start doing the whole shipping, right? Where they might be gay, they might have. It's like what? What happened to him wielding the lightsaber and potentially being a Jedi or something, right? Like what? And then like just completely forgot about him in the rest of the movies. And now it's like it's about him being identifying with people of color on this other planet, and it's like what? Like it's just so dumb, right? It's clear you're just injecting your ideology now onto him and his character versus saying, "Wow, let's make this a great character. Like let's give him his story. Let's have this journey he has, right?" No, he's got to fit into this box, this SJW box where it's about oppression and all this stuff, right? So former stormtroopers are oppressed. It's like okay, I mean whatever, right? That wasn't a thing before, but now it is for some reason. Like I like the idea that he was a stormtrooper and then grew a conscience. Like just realize, hey, like this isn't right. And he has agency now. It's not about some like woke agenda, right? Like he's got to find his people that look like have the same skin color. It's so ridiculous. But that's what they made him out to be, and they just completely, just nerfed him, and it's frustrating. You know, so they don't want original. Uh, they don't want original characters, original stories, and that affects everyone, right? I mean, it's not targeted just to black people, but unfortunately, we fall under that umbrella. Like they're ignoring us and what we actually want. They're ignoring everybody because they're
So,
simply injecting their ideology into everything. So,
so obviously, a few years ago, what's it called? They had was it Cannon Busters?
yeah,
Cannon
yeah,
Busters, and then
yeah, that was
prior to
actually really
that,
good.
yeah, it was. I didn't finish it, unfortunately.
You should. It's worth the watch. It's fun. The animation is absolutely gorgeous. It's
yeah.
I've rewatched it at least 3 times now.
Oh,
Just
really?
it,
Okay.
yeah, just for the animation alone. And but the story's fun. It's a fun story. It sets up a lot of things, but obviously, none of it gets paid off because it hasn't continued. So, which is unfortunate. But
Oh,
I
that's
liked
true.
it overall. I thought it was a fun
Okay.
anime. So,
But I was gonna say prior to that we had what's it called? It's called Neo Yokio. I don't know if you remember that one.
oh yeah, that was the one that had Jaden Smith, right? He was the
Yeah.
voice of the main
He
character.
was yeah, well he was his show, yeah. He
Yeah,
hosted
yeah,
his
yeah.
show.
I remember that. I never watched it though. It wasn't my to
Well, I'll
my
be honest,
taste, I guess.
I wasn't a big fan of it. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I admit I didn't watch it.
It felt
I mean,
like
I
it
watched the
was
first episode, and I was like, okay, yeah, this isn't really for me. So,
well, even as someone, even as obviously it's meant for anime fans. Even as an anime fan, I felt like
uh, okay, maybe it
I
was. I don't know. I mean, it looked like
well,
anime, right?
I mean,
It
it
had
was. I mean,
flavor
I'm
to
just
it. Yeah.
saying, like shows like Cannon Busters and Yo Yokio. What was it? I guess if you want to say the Yasuke show, the
Oh yeah,
Yasuke anime
Yasuke. I
show.
watched that. That was okay. Yeah, I finished that. That was it was pretty epic. There was a lot going on that, especially in the last few episodes, it was kind of like, huh? Like I don't know. I was a little confused,
I see. I
but
think
overall, yeah, visually it was beautiful. The story seemed pretty compelling. You had this past and all that.
yeah.
So
I think with the common thing, and honestly, that's just anime. We're not even talking about. I think there's a lot of that's just animation, whatever you want to say. I think I think people are expect. I don't know. I think on one hand, I think people are expecting to have this instant classic show right off the bat,
yeah, yeah,
and that's nothing wrong. I think people should always strive to make you know
the best possible.
the best
Yeah,
possible.
no.
Um, but I don't think
Well, yeah, and that's part of just in general, right? Like not
yeah,
everything's going to be super popular, but not only that, right off the gate, but not only that, but it takes time. Like it took time for a lot of the characters we really love today,
yeah,
from the comic book world, for them to sort of latch on and become part of this greater, ecosystem of entertainment, right? Um, so yeah, it's like it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? But what I'm saying is you got to start somewhere, right? Um, certain characters, yeah, were great right out the gate, like Superman and Shazam, right? But a lot of characters took time, and even Superman was a villain, right? And they went back and revamped him into a hero,
yeah,
So he wasn't popular right out the gate per se, right? Um, and that's true for a lot of different characters over the years. Um, it takes time, but part of that is showing them some love behind the scenes and kind of pushing them out there. Sometimes, when it comes to it's true for like music, like on when music is played on the radio,
oh yeah,
right? it's like you got to get it played and people listening to it for them to go, oh, I like that. And
Mm.
sometimes it doesn't happen off the first riff, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes hearing it over and over again over a few
Well, not even
weeks,
just that, but
you
I
know.
think even with artists' discography, I think people forget. Like, off the David Bowie comes up in a lot of people's list of greatest
Right.
artists of all
But
time.
initially that wasn't necessarily
No, it was not true at all.
yeah.
David's debut album was kind of sucked. It wasn't
Yeah.
great,
Well, that's what I
but
mean.
it
But
took him a few years
it
to
took
really
time.
find his sound. You know
Yeah,
what I
it
mean?
took time. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
it took time.
And
Yeah.
this is it's true for any character, especially minority characters. It is like I said. I see a lot of great stuff out there. Maybe the next stream we can highlight some of those that are out there. They're doing a thing and doing well. Some are doing well, on a smaller scale. They're selling books and all that.
Mm,
And it's like, and they're just original characters and with fun takes and great art. And it's like, part of it is, yeah, show them some love, right? Especially when it's like it is original, it is innovative in some cases. It is, it's not the same old tropes over and over again, and it's not race swapping, right? It's not. It's just, hey, here's an interesting take on you know this idea, right? And here's a character in it. It's like, yeah, show them some love, but love what you like. If it resonates with you, support it. And a lot of times, the problem with especially indie creators is, you know, the exposure, right? A lot of times people just don't know. They don't know about it. Not everybody's online. And even if you're online, you're not
that's
seeing
true. Yeah.
everything that's online.
No, you're not.
You know what I mean? Like you're just not. And so that's part of it too. Is just, getting out there and getting eyeballs on it to get that support and seeing it over and over and over and seeing like, hey, that's legit. Oh, that's interesting. Like what you look at one day and if you don't like it or it doesn't even appeal to you, and then 2 3 weeks later you'll look at it again and go, oh, that's interesting, right? That's just how it works.
Yeah.
And the mainstream has the power to inject media with whatever they want, and you can't help but see it, and you're going to see it as many times as they want you to see it because they have the resources to do that, right? They have the money. Disney has deep pockets. And like I said, a lot of those deep pockets come from them just getting funding from these DEI companies. you know and that's why they're checking these boxes, right? Because they're getting paid. They're not getting paid from us, right? The fans has been, the viewership has been in decline, right? And like every time they put it out, people go, oh, no thanks. Every iteration, it's no thanks, no thanks, no thanks. And now they're really starting to feel it with their stocks, but they'll keep going because they're still getting money. You understand? They're still getting
Yeah.
paid. It's like government institutions, right? They're you just pick any government office like DMV, right? DMV is not customer driven. The DMV is government driven, right? Their customer is the government, so they need funding to keep going. They don't need our money to keep going. You understand? I'm serious, right? They're not looking at drivers and going, what does the average driver want from us? What do they need? What's in demand, right? No, they're they're like, how do we get more funding to keep going? It's just like public universities, same thing. Their clients are not students; their client is the government, and even
Damn.
private universities now. Because what do? They inflate their tuition, right? Why? Because the government's going to pay for it because students come in with student loans, right? So that's what's funding them. The students aren't, you know, like they don't have to improve anything to get more students. They just, you understand, like they're
Yeah.
going to get students. They just, so they can hike up their prices. They can without offering anything more in value. They don't
Yeah.
have to
I don't
guarantee
think you
you get a job.
realize.
So it's like that's what I'm saying, and that's how the entertainment industry right now is they're being funded by some external party with deep pockets who has an agenda, and they're paying them for that agenda. They're saying
Yeah.
you
I don't
gotta.
think you realize how hard that line was.
It's true. I mean, it's just true, man. It's like look, you know that
No, I'm not disagreeing with you,
yeah,
but it's like,
we're not there.
jeez.
I know, but it's something that I think a lot of us don't think about. But that's the reality: is we're not the customer anymore. The customer are the people, the DEI people who are giving them money to check those boxes. You understand? Those are the customers, not us. So that's why while the fan viewership is dropping, they're still in business. Why hasn't
I mean,
Disney
that is
declared
true. Yeah,
bankruptcy? It should be going bankrupt.
yeah,
Stocks are falling. The movies aren't making enough money. You know, same thing with all these other some of these other studios, right? Say, how are they still in business? Well, they get money from these hedge funds and stuff that are saying check these boxes and we'll give you that hundreds of millions of dollars, you know, to fund this, your projects, right?
mm,
So then, yeah, maybe they'll make some money, but they're not making profits. Then they're writing it off, so they're partially government subsidized too, because they can write off a lot of those losses. So yeah, it's like that's why I always say like when people try to make sense out of like the huge exorbitant budgets for these movies, you know, and then the movies barely make half of it back, right? I'm like,
yeah,
it's just money laundering. Hollywood is they're just laundering money. They're not trying to make an actual product that's viable, right? They're just money laundering. That's all. Because if you can make a Godzilla -1, right? That movie, I've seen so many clips. I haven't watched it. I'm going to watch it now. It's on Netflix. Um, you know, but that movie looks amazing. Like I've seen so many clips, and I was like, this looks beautiful. And the budget was like a ridiculous amount. Like it wasn't even close to being 100, let alone 50 million, right? From what I've heard, right? And it's like, okay, so if you can make this with just a few million, right? Like just a small percentage of that 100 or 200 million, what's possible now, right? Anything's possible. But yet they're still telling us these budgets of 300 million dollars for just awful movies. You understand? Like they're objectively bad. It's not even we're not even talking about the so-called representation aspect, like the woke aspect, right?
yeah.
We're just talking
Now,
about
to
just
be
as a
fair,
movie and a story, they're just bad. Like Madam Web is a good example. Like it's just objectively bad,
yeah, it's
right?
terrible.
And it's
Now,
like, and but you're spending 200 plus million on this. I
yeah.
don't believe it. You're laundering money.
Now, to be fair to the team, I guess. So, one thing that's brought up when it comes to Godzilla -1 is, I guess, working conditions in Japan. Because I know there's a lot of truth to it in like the anime industry, but like I guess animators getting overworked and whatnot.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I've heard and seen.
Now I haven't heard anything like that come out of the Godzilla -1 production, so I can't say for sure if if the working conditions for that movie were
Yeah, I
bad or
mean,
not.
and that's another conversation. And that's a good point, right? It's like, yeah, so they made it for this very low budget, but what was the true cost,
Yeah.
right? What was
That being
so
said,
far
though, I
as
feel
the
like
bodies they had to throw at, especially in the VFX realm, right? Because
yeah,
that's where it excels, right?
yeah. That being said, though, I feel like even like I feel like whether it's true or not, that it's I don't know. It's like either way, the people there's clearly a level of talent, right? That's being on display that isn't on display in most Western films.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's like I feel like if they were overworked, right, they wouldn't be putting out the same. They wouldn't be putting out that level of quality. You know what I'm saying?
that's a fair point. Yeah,
Because like you hear a lot of the same stories with graphic effects teams here in America, and they're saying, "Well, yeah, we're getting overworked, so the quality of the effects of movies is bad." But it's like, so
yeah.
why isn't that the case for Godzilla -1?
Well, that's
You
what
know
I'm
what I'm
going to
saying?
say. That's kind of a misnomer, right? Like that the quality is a reflection of. being overworked, it's like, well, there's not really a correlation in that sense.
Yeah.
Sure, you can make that argument as an individual and say, I did this artistic piece and it's not as good as it could have been because I was tired, right? Or, but the reality is, it's like, well, even if that were true, your piece would still look good. Why? Because the talent is there, right? The skill set has been developed, right? Like you look at, I don't know, Alex Ross, right? He's one of my favorite artists, comic book artists, especially. But his work is phenomenal, right? I'm sure he's, burning midnight oil on a few projects here and there, right?
Well,
And
yeah, because that's, I mean,
you know,
that's
and,
the
and,
price
and
of talent is
yeah,
time.
well, right, and I'm sure if he was dead, dog dead, double dog tired, right, he could still crank out something that looks amazing, and we wouldn't even know,
Yeah.
right? Like it would be the most discerning eye that would be able to catch something and go, oh, he must have been tired because this line is off, or this,
Or
so
sorry
you know what I
guys, I
mean?
was sick today.
Yeah,
Proceed to make,
yeah, yeah, the next
recreate the
Mona
Mona
Lisa, right?
Lisa.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, so, yeah, I hear that. I've seen comments like that. I don't, I've done it. I've worked in heavy production environments as a graphic designer and as a web designer, web developer, and yeah, it can get intense, especially if you're working in a field where it requires results. There's deadlines like
Yeah.
nightly or daily deadlines. Yeah, you can end up working. I've worked, 12, 13, 14 hours on some, and at night, right? So I'm starting at 5 p.m., working until 6, 7, 8, sometimes 10 a.m.
Yeah.
During a busy time of year doing production work, design work, for basically for a newspaper industry. And it's like, yeah, it can get, but you can still do great work. I've seen guys do amazing work under those conditions because they were just inherently talented. Like their skill set was just phenomenal. Like they were just incredible designers, artists. So yeah, it can suffer though. I'm not saying there's no correlation, but I don't think that's the only issue, right? I think there's other factors that contribute to a movie not being good, especially visually good.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is probably not securing the best talent. Because let's face it, not everybody is going to be the best, right?
No.
Like you have a lot of VFX studios, a lot of in-house studios, of course, with some of these bigger um, companies, and not everybody's the best. Not everybody has mastered VFX and animation. So you're going to get varying degrees of skill and talent, right? I think that's part of it. The other part of it is, even like I said, with these bloated budgets, I'll say it again. I think a lot of it is, and this is my opinion. I don't have any factual. This is just me. You know, put two and two together. I think a
Yeah.
lot of it is um, kind of money laundering in the sense that you're paying these executives, producers, etc., are paying themselves bloated salaries, and then the guys who are actually producing the content, right? The artists, the animators, the VFX artists aren't, they aren't being paid as much as they should be, right? And then they're being pushed what they call crunch, right? Where you got to just get this out, and so yeah, the quality is going to lack because you don't have the time to really delve into it because you only have this budget, and they're not going to pay you a penny more, right? So that's possible. Yeah, that can happen as well. But it's also not necessarily securing the best out there either, right? So that's part of it too. Like you just get you know, you're okay with hiring guys who may not have a lot of experience, right? But hey, they're getting it done, and it could be better, but it's okay because that's not the goal anyways. We're not trying to produce the best product possible. We're just trying to crank out something, right? Content, right? We
Yeah.
just consume content, right? So I think it's nuanced. There's a lot of factors.
Yeah.
Um,
And to be fair,
it's not
based off of what we
just
know, what goes on in the writing room, where they're not Actually, there's not a lot of writing getting done.
Yeah, I mean, that's like I said. Well, the writing that's getting done isn't always great writing, and we see that on the on the back end when we watch these movies or TV shows, and we're like,
Yeah.
how did this, how did this get made? And it's like, well, somebody didn't care about editing, right? Somebody didn't care about a good story, and it's unfortunate, but it's true, right? It's like, and nobody wants to say that, especially within the creative circles, right? No artist wants to say this other artist is a terrible artist, or this, very few want to do that because no one wants to, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to say this artist that worked on this is terrible. Like, I'm not going to do that, right? Because we all have bad days and projects that we didn't do well on or could have done better, or and it's like I said, there's a lot of factors. So, but we do have to face the reality that, yeah, some of these movies, and shows, they're not giving us the best. They're not putting their best foot forward, and they have the resources to do it. That's what's frustrating. It's not like every movie needs to be this huge blockbuster and earn $1 billion. It's like, well, no, it's just make something good. You know, like I give kudos to Ryan Reynolds. The last few years or whatever, um, he's been making some pretty decent stuff. You know, I mean, I can't think of a single movie he's done that he was either in or he produced. Or, that's like, oh, that was god awful. Like,
Yeah.
no, they've been really cool, really fun
Like,
movies.
if
And that,
every
you know,
movie had the amount of effort as Hoodwinked with
yeah, I mean,
twice the budget, so I would be
yeah,
happy. Because
yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Hoodwinked had a writing level, like a story that was like, for me, Hoodwinked was like, especially the kid, was peak cinema. Even though the animation looked like a PS2 game, it
yeah,
still
yeah.
it was carried.
For the time, it was acceptable for sure. But yeah, it's kind of dated now. But you're
Yeah,
right. The story was great. It was
it was
fun.
phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's a memorable movie. It's like,
Like, we still quote that movie.
but you can tell the people that made it. And I watched like the behind the scenes, right? With like the making of and how they
Yeah.
the journey of making them and how they already cast their people who most of them the cast were unknowns, right? They were just regular,
Oh
voice
yeah, I
actors.
remember
And
seeing
then
the.
they got picked up by a studio and they kind of swapped out some of the voice actors, right? Which it's like, okay, but it's like you could tell they were having fun, right? Initially, they were having fun with this movie. They were creating something really cool and really special, and yeah, and it shows. It shows even after it went Hollywood, quote unquote, right, where he got picked up and then they swapped out, for a more named character. It's like, okay, I mean, it happens. Why? I didn't think it was necessary. I don't think it would have made the movie any better.
For the most
Although
part,
I do
yeah.
like Patrick Warburton. I mean,
I was
I
about to
love
say
his
the wolf is
yeah,
the
I
only
love his
exception.
voice. Yeah, I agree. I think so. I mean,
Other
the
than
guy
that, I
they had
think the other
before,
voice was
he
fine.
he was good too.
He was.
But I just happen to like, because Seinfeld and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but I agree. It didn't make me watch the movie though. It didn't like, oh, Patrick Warburton's in
No,
it.
I
Like,
didn't know
no,
who Patrick Warburton was.
yeah,
You
like,
know,
yeah, I
I was
didn't
just like,
care. So, but all that aside, it's like it shows through with the movie that they had fun and they were trying to make something fun for us, right? Fun for the audience, something that people can engage in and enjoy. And if I feel like that's not really happening anymore. Now it seems like a lot of things are being made to send a message, you know, and it's like I'm tired of getting a message. I just want to be entertained. Just inspire me. Let's have fun. Let's, especially when you're talking about children's content or even just animation in general. And I'm not saying all animation has to be superhero action sci-fi. No, but a lot of it should be. And the ones that are should be good and fun and engaging. You know, um, so we'll see. Like there's a lot of investment that's been happening with animation in the last probably 5 years, I would say, especially in Europe, like in France and all. There's been a lot of uh,
Oh yeah.
projects,
What's it called? Whack Fu and
yeah, white food and there's one I like called I don't know if I should say it. It's
some more motherfuckers.
uh,
You talking about that one?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I saw.
That came out
Yeah,
years ago, but
yeah, but it still
it was
looks, it
awesome.
still holds up.
It is. It's a beautiful, beautiful film, actually. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's French. It's a French studio.
No, it's the
So
French.
they've been going through this kind of renaissance, which is
I know
nice. And
it's
it's so
crazy.
different, so creative, and like I said, they're having fun. They're just telling great stories, having fun, giving us something entertaining, right? And I would like to see that resurgence back here in the states. Um, and honestly, I'm rooting for these indie guys who are creating animation because that's not easy, man. Animation is hard,
Yeah.
um, and even comic book guys, the video game guys, man. I'm rooting for you. So, and I'm rooting for everybody to win. So, um, yeah, man, I'm getting tired of the mainstream. Um,
Yeah. One
Not
thing I want to
everything,
mention.
but
Yeah.
a lot of it. Yeah, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It's just one thing I want to mention before we close out, and that really gets on my nerves about. And this is, and we can talk about this next stream, but when you look at the on like the wiki page and about they talk about the writers' room. You know, what's it called? Yeah, headline. Yeah, they wanted to explore Star Wars franchise from the perspective of the villains, and it's this whole.
Yeah,
It's so
that's
it's
another.
yeah.
It's kind of. I kind of feel like I don't want to say it's. Yeah, it's kind of over. It's been done before. It's. I don't know. I don't care
And it's
about.
like, yeah, we
The,
already did that. We already.
yeah,
It's called
it's.
the prequel series.
Yeah, I agree.
Literally,
That's what I'm saying. It's
Anakin
kind
was
of
Darth
feels.
Vader. It was Darth Vader's backstory.
Yeah, it feels kind of overdone at this point and unoriginal. But it's like fine, if you're gonna do it, fine. But like I said, that's not even, and that's what I'm saying. Like the underlying is like you're still not even giving us a good something creative or innovative. Like, and so, but yeah, it's like fine, you want to do that, but why the whole female? It's like why? Like I read the Times article and they emphasize, oh, it's written by a female, directed by a female cast. But it's like, so what? It's like I don't care. Just make something good. But when they start emphasizing, superficial things like whether you're male or female or black or white, that signals to people that this is probably not going to be good. You understand? Like that's what's
I mean,
happening.
we'll see, but
I know.
I
I don't
mean,
know. I mean, it maybe it could be good. I don't know, but I don't want to take the chance because I feel like, well, yeah, I'm tired of it. It's exhausting. And so you're turning people away that you should want to watch, right? So why are you overemphasizing, so-called uh so-called female empowerment, you know? It's like stop it. Like just make a show and if it has predominantly female cast, okay. I mean, it's nothing new, right? I remember growing up, there was Charlie's Angels, and that was great. Like
yeah,
there was Wonder Woman. I used to watch that show as a kid. I love Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is one of my favorite heroes, right? Uh, it's like it's this pretend world where men hate women for being women, and it's like, well, that's not reality at all. But for some reason, these people like Kathleen Kennedy have to emphasize that like women are being held and say no, they're not. They're not at all. Right? Like they're not, right? The issue isn't what women, right? The issue is women plus good entertainment. Right?
yeah.
It's like we're getting women plus bad entertainment, and that's the problem. The problem is the bad entertainment, right? The problem is not the woman part, right? Just give us good entertainment. Give us, you know, the opposite of what you've been giving us, right? Give us women who are just, relatable characters who are, like the first Wonder Woman movie. It was great. Gal Gadot was awesome. She was a great Wonder Woman, right?
Hmm.
I mean, you can critique the movie itself, like the ending. Like there's a lot of criticism with the villain. Like I have my opinions as to what should have transpired, but overall, it was an entertaining movie and it was fun, and it did its job, right? And it didn't feel like it was some kind of forced feminism. Even though Wonder Woman is a feminist icon, she was literally created that way. But I think she's transcended that, right? She's become far more than that, right? And that's a good thing. I think that's a beautiful thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it can be done. It's like, but they just choose not to do it. They rather just stick to their ideological script, you know, because I guess it's paying the bills, right? It's unfortunate, but I think and like I said, the sort of the boots on the ground, right? The like the Kathleen Kennedys and some of the directors, etc. They they don't care about the money. They're going to get paid, right? Regardless, they care about the ideology, right? So they want to just get the message out, right? Um, and that's what it's about for them. For the upper echelon, it's about, well, let's get that sweet DEI money, right? So check these boxes, and then they carry it out. And but for them, it's oh, we got to get this message out, and so they don't care about profits and all that stuff.
No.
They really don't. They don't care about the board does, like Disney's board probably does, right? Investors do. If you're investing in Disney or Sony or some of these other studios, you care about it. But the people running the company don't, right? Because they're getting their money regardless, right? So they're not worried about profits, you know, and that's unfortunate. So hopefully, I think there's been a shift, but I think it's a little too late. Like you've heard comments from Jerry Seinfeld and most recently uh, a member of Pixar who retired from Pixar. Right, they've pointed out the issues with the DEI stuff in their own
Yeah.
way. Right, so I think some people are becoming more emboldened who have been in the industry and behind the scenes, and they kind of know. But it's kind of too little, too late. Right, so I'm not sure what the future holds. If I mean, I don't think Disney's going anywhere. I think they're going to restructure though. Um, they'll revamp Disney Plus into something else, or merge it with Hulu and just be Hulu. You know what I mean? Or and I think they're going to license a lot of the content out to other streamers. I've heard rumors that Apple's going to buy Disney. All this kind of stuff. I don't think Apple should buy Disney. I mean, if they do, don't buy all of Disney. Just buy like the good stuff. Like pick it apart. Like buy the Simpsons. Buy, you know what I mean? Like buy the classic stuff. Stuff like
I feel
that.
like
Don't.
the Simpsons have been around long enough though. But
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying like that's content that people actually like. So
that's fair.
you know, you know what I mean. So yeah, buy that stuff. Like pick it apart. Like treat it like a garage sale, a yard sale. Just pick out.
Hmm.
You know, they should do that, but don't buy the company whole cloth. I don't think buying a Disney brand, like I don't think it would benefit Apple very much. But
No.
owning some of their content, sure. Like buying some of the classic stuff, and some of their movies, right? Like I said, pick out the good if you can. I don't know. They probably won't allow it, but that's what I would do. I wouldn't buy the whole company though. If I did, most of the stuff that recent stuff they've been making would go in a vault. It would never see the light of day.
Yeah.
so, so it's like, yeah. So we'll see what happens with all that, right? But yeah, I think they're gonna do that. They're gonna just license out um, a lot of their content because their app isn't doing very well. So for various reasons, and some of which we've touched on, right? But yeah, man, that's what I got. You got anything else to add?
No, I mean, I would just say remember the bar is extremely low, so
Yeah, yeah,
don't be
you're
afraid of
right.
rejection.
See, you're right, and that's part of the consequence of the overemphasis on uh, diversity, equity.
Well, I think it goes beyond that. I think we have to remember that 90% of the stuff that gets popular is only 1% of the stuff that's actually out there. If that makes any sense,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
right? Like the stuff that gets really successful is really successful compared to like you be like just think about your think about your top 10 favorite games and then realize that there's a million other games just like them.
yeah.
Maybe not made by your
No,
AAA
but you're right. That's
companies.
yeah. That's true for most. Like especially in entertainment. You
Yeah,
look at a very popular actor or actress, and you go, man, he's this or handsome, whatever, or she's so beautiful. And it's like, but reality is there's about 100,000 or more of them, you know, already out there doing commercials, like,
yeah.
smaller stuff. And they haven't broken through yet. They haven't gotten that part yet or whatever, or they don't know the right people,
Mm-hmm.
like it's no coincidence that a lot of famous stars, um,
You used to do
end up being
commercials.
related to a previous famous star or a producer or like they have
Yeah,
a legacy in Hollywood and they tend to be the ones that rise to the top and stay there. And because most people don't, right? Most people that break in don't have any connections. They're just, I want to be an actor, I want to be an actress, I want to be a writer. And so, but many, and same thing with music industry, right? There's so many people that could blow a lot of these current musicians out of the water, so far as their voice talent or their skills. They're out there. It's just we don't know about them, right? And with the mainstream, they have, it's a machine, right? Disney controls the press uh, and the other studios, Warner Brothers, all these guys, right? It's a machine, including the government, right? That's another factor that's not talked about a lot. And so there's gatekeepers and all this kind of stuff. So certain things will only get so much exposure, you know. Thank God for alternative media and everything like that. That helps a lot, right? But yeah, it's like you're right. You're seeing that 1% of so many more millions of people who have the same, skill set, talent, looks, whatever, right? That's just kind of the way it is, I suppose. But if like the internet is what makes it, um, what do they say? It sort of democratizes that, right? Because
yeah.
now you can
The
find
Wild
talented
West.
people a lot easier, right? Who aren't
Mm-hmm.
in the mainstream, right? And how many times have you seen someone, sing a song on YouTube, and we're like, that voice is amazing, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they should have a record deal or something, right? You know what I mean? And it's
yeah.
like,
I'm always reminded of I don't know if you ever saw the meme where the black dude sings the Golden Girls theme.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's just like yeah,
yeah, amazing voice, right? And it's
yeah,
such a creative thing to do, right? Like, and it's like, yeah, there's talented people out there, but will he ever hit some kind of mainstream stride? Maybe not. But he went viral. That's great,
yeah,
and hopefully maybe leverage that into something where he's got a following and he's, hopefully uh, that's able to support him and
yeah.
make a living and all that.
I
And
mean,
that's,
think about
that's the
Matt
beauty of
Pat, right? And the game theory. He created an entire genre of YouTube videos, just from his house, right? And
it.
now he
Right.
gets to retire 11 years later, having created a media empire
That's
with no
phenomenal.
Hollywood help.
Yeah, no heart. That's what I'm saying. Like, look at Mr. Beast. That's another.
Oh, yeah,
It's
that's
like
true.
they don't need Hollywood.
Nah.
I remember I watched an interview he did with man, I forgot his name. He
He's
does a
talking
lot
about
of
on the.
interviews.
Oh, okay.
Well, he was interviewing Mr. Beast, and he was talking about that how people come in to his organization, right? Because he's an organization now. He's got a team. He's got producers, etc. And they'll come in as an aspiring writer or producer or something, right? And they're like, "Say, what's your future? Like, what do you like?" He's interviewing. He's like, what does the future look like to you? What are your goals, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, well, eventually I want to get into Hollywood. I want to like
Yeah,
do this kind of show or that kind of And he kind of laughs, and he's like, "Yeah, it's like you gotta have it backwards." He's like, "I'm not trying to get in Hollywood. You should be trying to create your own channel." He's like, because Hollywood is that's nothing anymore, right? He
yeah,
doesn't need Hollywood. Hollywood needs him,
yeah,
and he understands that. So he's like, you're going backwards. You're trying to come in here and then
yeah.
move
You've made it. You know,
move
it's like,
down
oh,
to Hollywood versus you just reached sort of the pinnacle of entertainment period, right, on YouTube, which is Mr. Beast. So now from there you should be like, well, I'm going to spin off my own channel and do this kind of stuff, and maybe we can partner up and blah blah blah, right? That should be your mentality, not, oh, I want to break into Hollywood. It's like, bro, you're in the wrong place. And that was kind of the gist of his point, right? He's like, yeah, you're not seeing it how you're supposed to be seeing it, right?
yeah,
And it's kind of funny, and that was kind of the point he was making. It's like that people don't understand that. Like, Hollywood is dead. It's a dead man walking. And it's being propped up because it's heavily subsidized by government and by these hedge funds, right? Um, and I'm talking about I'm not talking about like independent creators or even smaller studios, right? A lot of those guys aren't, you know, that heavily subsidized and all that. So it's not everyone, but definitely the top guys out there, they are, and I'm speaking not just movies, but just in general, like, uh, it's, television shows and all. It's like that stuff. No, very few people care about that stuff anymore. You know, and it's starting to show. Right, the cracks are getting bigger, and the dam is going to burst. And what's going to come through is independent content. Right, it's just going to come flooding out because people are going to be looking for it. They're going to be more attuned for it because they're going to be tired of the same stuff that they've been putting out, the new stuff. I mean, that's why there's been a resurgence of classic stuff where, people are going back and they're watching old school TV shows and movies on Tubi and all this stuff, right? Roku and Freevee and Pluto. And, like they just released a new cartoon channel for Me TV, right?
yeah,
And it's going to have all these Hanna Barbera classic cartoons, right? Just like Boomerang back in the '90s, right? And it's like, yeah, because there's a demand for it. Because people are like, I'm tired of the garbage, And it's not, like I said, it's not everything. I'm sure there's some gems you can point out and go, well, this was good. This, sure, but it's not the majority, right? Those are exceptions, not the rule, and that's the problem, right? And so, they're launching a whole channel dedicated just to classic cartoons, classic animation. That should tell you everything. Like Hollywood, yeah, they've run out of tricks. They don't have any more. They're not creative anymore because they're not hiring creative people. They're not pulling in creative people, and creative people who are out there, they're like, well, forget this, and they're just doing their own thing because they have the internet, they have YouTube, they have social media, and they have access to the tools they need, right? That are the price points, the cost points aren't very high, right? So you can, I mean, look, if you have a iPhone or any cell phone,
yeah,
especially an iPhone, right? Because that's considered like top of line when it comes to photography. Go out there and make a movie. You can go out there and make a movie right now. And then there's free software that lets you edit it. And then all you got to do is figure out how to post it somewhere
yeah,
for people. You understand? And if it's good, people are going to click on it and say, I like it, right? They're going to share it. and you're gonna do this thing called going viral, right?
Yeah.
you know, and what does that do? It creates a following, right? So if you get a following of, I don't know, 1,000 people, you know, it doesn't take a lot, right? And now you monetize all these, all these different things. If you can be creative, it's like, what do I need Hollywood for? I don't, right? Um, and that's going to happen with gaming too. Eventually, gaming is going to be the next
I feel like
Hollywood.
that's already happened with gaming.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
lot of indie gamers who are doing very well, but it's going to happen more and more because they're starting to let that DEI stuff in as well, creep in, and that's just going to push gamers away, and they're going to seek out independent games, any content that's good, or they're going to just go back to the classic stuff, right?
I mean that
So
that that's already happening. That's a
yeah,
whole other thing.
yeah. So yeah, man, it's going to be interesting the next few years, right? Um, so, but yeah, I'm gonna so 12:27. Yeah, go ahead and end the stream and call it a day. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your support. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. And for future streams, feel free to chime in the comments and speak your piece. If you agree, disagree, if you think something we said is stupid, ridiculous, let us know, man. We're not above reproach here, so we're just speaking our minds and trying to be as honest and authentic as possible. So, and
Yeah.
check out our site, supergalacticfantastic.com. Check out our characters and get a sense of what we're trying to do. We plan to launch our campaign later this year. We're finishing up the script and everything, and working with some artists, and hopefully we'll create something you like, and hopefully you'll support us. And like I said, we appreciate the support. Thanks for tuning in. Um, make it a wonderful day.
We'll see you around.